Another insightful legal series that is now coming to a conclusion. Today we talk about, well, I should say in the past we've talked about issues such as violence in schools, teacher molestation, school-related sports injuries, and today we end the Municipal Liability series on the topic of eminent domain. Here as always is attorney and legal correspondent David Lesch, and we welcome him back. And David, eminent domain.
Yes, you know, it's been a nice, long, rewarding series, but everything has to come to an end. Today, the eminent domain issue involves the seizing of private property for public use. And what does that really mean? That means if a municipality would like to take certain property and expand it and use it for either creating jobs, any type of business development, social work, any type of maybe medical work that's being done, the municipality feels it has the right to take this particular property and use it for the public benefit. The problem is when you're taking properties from a private person, you're running into constitutional issues. And you have two different sides to the story. And whenever you're dealing with constitutional law, there are always, two elements, and there's a balance. On one side, you have the public use doctrine, which allows the municipality to take, and this is in the Constitution, to take public, or to take private industry, seize it, and use it for public use. On the other hand, you always have the Fifth Amendment, which prevents the municipality from seizing, life, liberty, or property without just compensation. So they're always fighting against each other. The problem is when you have economic times like we're having now, the municipalities are always looking for ways to increase job growth. So you see situations, for instance, where Columbia University wanted to take much of the property in West Harlem, seize it, condemn it, take it, and then expand their campus 17 acres. There's always a fight going on in the community. And this has been coming up more and more often in New York City because New York is very proactive in taking property from one private hand and unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on how you look at it, moving it into another private hand. So what do I mean by that?
It works both ways, in other words.
It works both ways. A lot of times when you're taking a property from somebody and the government says we're using it for public use, well, many times believe it or not, they're giving the property to another private industry who is making a profit. And that hits you, in a very tough spot. For instance, for example, there was a very famous case in Missouri in 1981 which really set the whole eminent domain law. And in that particular case, General Motors wanted a tremendous amount of land so they can increase their power plant and make more cars. The municipality obviously pushed for it, but the problem is this: when they pushed for this type of a seizure of property, they're really pushing for it because General Motors themselves wanted to make money and increase the sale of their cars. Of course, the municipality, which in Missouri wanted this to happen because they wanted jobs to be created. But what did they take? They took farmland from farmers. Obviously, they took different businesses. Same thing happens in New York. If either Bloomberg or Trump or somebody wants to develop a particular area where it's the 11th Avenue subway tracks, the railways, to build a jet stadium or something else, these are things that have to be considered when you're trying to decide, do you want to give this to a private development? So what ends up happening is the pull back and forth causes a lot of friction within the community. And then what ends up happening is somebody always ends up coming and says, well, what are my legal rights? I want my property back. Bloomberg or somebody wants to take my property. They want to develop something on the land. They say they're going to pay me for it, but I don't want to sell it. It's been in my family for years, this store that's here. They want to put a highway. They want to put something else. Mm-hmm. What is my legal rights? Here are your legal rights. If somebody, a condemned Nord, decides to try and take your property, they have to give you public notice. Right? And you see that around the Yankees Stadium development. That's what they did. You would then have 30 days to file an objection. There'll be hearings in the meantime. Mm-hmm. Of course, the hearings will always be, one side saying that it's going to ruin the community, the other side saying we're going to build parks and we're going to create jobs. Then, if you've done this within 30 days, you don't bring a legal action into the Supreme Court of Bronx County. Let's say this is happening in the Bronx.
Right.
You have to go to the appellate division. That's the first department. You always go to the appellate division where the property is located. Now, here's the problem with that. When you go to Supreme Court Bronx County, you have a trial. You have a jury trial. You cross-examine witnesses. You get discovery. You produce evidence to the judges that are marked. That doesn't work that way, the appellate division. Appellate division is what's called oral argument. There's no jury trial. So many people feel that the eminent domain laws are really skewed for the big businesses. And because you don't have a chance as a little person to really show your evidence. And it's stacked against you. But like I said, on the other side, you do want to create jobs for the community. So eminent domain is great until it's your property that they're taking away. And,
Right.
and it happens, Darren, more often than you think.
That's what I was going to ask.
It does.
Are there a lot of cases that we see going, I guess because given the fact that there's a lot of development and redevelopment
There's
going
always
on
development.
in New York City
Always.
and the five boroughs.
Well, look what Robert Moses did when he was, when he was developing New York. He created the Cross Bronx Expressway, Lincoln Center. Then you had you had the New York Coliseum. Well, all these projects displaced businesses and homes, and I think he went a little overboard in terms of a lot of the development. But we calmed down for a while, certainly maybe in the 70s and the 80s. But we're back now. Big business is back and trying to develop economic growth in New York. So yes, Columbia, just had this big fight where they wanted to expand their campus, and they took over all those businesses. Eminent domain is alive and well, and it will always be there. And if you feel that you have, if they're taking your property, they're condemning it, and they're paying you, but you still want to keep it, and they're not giving you full value, then you better make sure you got 30 days to file an objection, and then you bring the action in the appellate division. And sometimes, you never know, they may actually have what's called an injunction and prevent the seizure of your property.
Good information. Thanks a lot.
You're welcome.
All righty. As always, you can catch David Lesch right here every Wednesday on Open, and then you can also catch him on Bronx Legal right here on BronxNet Television. So